Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of the From Surviving to Thriving video interview series, Stories of Real People Overcoming Real Adversity. And today I have with me the amazing Caroline Southwell, who I will hand over to Caroline to introduce herself because no one can do it as well as she can. Hi Caroline.
Hi Carly, thanks for having me on this video series. I'm stoked to be here. So who is Caroline? Well, the professional intro would be that I am a speaker, writer and coach. And I work with entrepreneurial women to be able to help them grow their business through growing themselves. So women who want to change the world and have come to the realization that all of that wanting to make the world a better place, it all starts with us. It starts with us first. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of from a professional point of view. And then what will you catch me doing if I'm not in work mode? I'll be climbing trees and running on bush trails and going on adventures. So I love getting into the outdoors and getting up to mischief, and then writing stories about what I've been up to.
Awesome. And I love the stuff you share on Facebook. It's so powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're so raw and authentic, and that's what really draws me to reading your stuff. You write in a really powerful way.
Thanks.
So share with us and our audience what has kind of shaped you into the person you are today in terms of the adversity that you've experienced in your life.
So I've been doing a lot of really deep personal transformation work in the last 18 months, I'd say. And some of the really big stuff that came up kind of surprised me. So what I found was that one of the earliest kind of adversities that I uncovered that I didn't really think was a big deal, but it shaped me more than I realized, was when I was 4. I think I was officially diagnosed with having ADD, attention deficit disorder. And my darling mum, bless her, was working out all of these different ways that she could deal with this child. And I'm one of 3. So all 3 of us are a little bit of a handful on our own, let alone put the 3 of us together. And in the process of working out what she could do to help me to function at school and function with my brother and sister and with other kids, is she realized that she kind of didn't have much of a choice but to put me on a drug called Ritalin. Now, anyone who has had any exposure to ADD, ADHD will probably be aware of these drugs. And at the time, I didn't really feel like I could say no. But what I discovered, Carly, in going back and kind of taking myself back into that childhood experience, is I clearly really didn't want to take the drugs, but I didn't know how to say no.
That's
and
such
so
a young age, isn't it, to be?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and I think I have to double check with Mum. I think that from the age of probably 4 to 8, she tried very patiently, tried all sorts of things, including changes to my diet, homeopathy. Like, my mum's a lot into alternative medicine, so she'd tried a lot of different things. But socially, I was having a lot of issues at school. I wasn't a very confident kid, so I really struggled to make friends. I would get teased a lot, so my mum would watch me come home from school like every day in tears, being picked on because socially I wasn't interacting. So her heart was going out for her little girl who was in pain, and she was just going, how do I help my little girl? Do you know what I mean? So I had previously, I'd already worked through, like when I first got into the personal development industry, Carly, I had been doing a lot of stuff on the not feeling confident and being picked on. So I'd already worked through so much of that adversity of feeling like, oh my God, as a kid, I was constantly teased, right? And I know that's the experience for so many people. So many people were picked on or bullied to some degree at school. So I'd already worked through a lot of that stuff. And then the next round of stuff I had worked on had been around being sexually assaulted multiple times. And so it was interesting to find that this was actually underneath, or like once I dug, that was the stuff I was finding and feeling like I didn't have control over my body, which then I think fed into this experience, this pattern of feeling violated by men and not being able to speak my boundaries. So it's really, I find transformation really fascinating, Carly, because it's like the more you delve in, the more you find how things are connected, and it's just like this big giant puzzle that I get to solve.
And it never stops, does it?
No. Forget about finding an endpoint. You just get more and more. Like, I am more and more grateful. I am able to experience chunks of every day now where I experience joy and bliss, and there's always more work that can be done, but at some point you also realize I don't know, I can't speak for you, but I know for me that at some point you work through such a big chunk of stuff that there's just a freedom that you go, oh, they're all stories.
Yeah, definitely. And
life is now, and now is beautiful, regardless of what's happened in my past.
Yeah. And the lightness that you get from that kind of transformative work is so powerful that, I don't know about you, but whenever more stuff comes up for me that triggers me, that I go, oh, I didn't know that was there. There's definitely a part of me that goes, oh, I didn't know that was there. But also there's a bigger part of me that thinks, wow, okay, when I shift this, I will feel so much lighter, because I know that with each stage I get lighter and lighter the more stuff I release. So yeah, it's really powerful. And then as a result of that, the stuff that you attract into your life is so much more amazing, isn't it?
So much more amazing. Yeah. The people that I have in my life, the friends that I have, the experience, the opportunities that come to me, the work that I get to do now, you couldn't have told me that that's what my experience of life would be. You couldn't have told me that I could feel this much joy and bliss and presence and love and gratitude even say 3 years ago. I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, are you talking about Eckhart Tolle? Like, what, seriously? I'm like, no, this is my life. And sure, I have like hard days, everyone does. I have days where I'm like, do I have to get out of bed today? But they're infrequent, and it's that they become less and less, and they're also less controlling. Mm-hmm. So when I have a difficult moment or a difficult hour or even a difficult day, it doesn't stick around anywhere near as long as it used to, because I'm now equipped with tools to be able to shift stuff so much faster. So I don't have to stay angry or upset or sad any longer than I want to.
Yeah, exactly. And you're so right. You kind of allow yourself that time to shift through it, but it happens so much faster. But do you still have days where you go, I'm just going to have a doona day today. I'm just going to eat some ice cream. I'm just going to wallow in it for just a tiny little bit. And then you move through it.
Yeah. And they don't tend to be whole days. They might be like, I don't know, like after the last gorgeous love affair that I had, and I can't even call it like a relationship because it was quite short, but it's like when I enter an intimate relationship with a man now, I'm like, I really go into it. I'm like, how much can I love this person? How much can I get to know this person? How much can I deeply love and appreciate who this person is? And when he had messaged me and said, hey, I actually think that I'm a bad influence on you and I don't want to hurt you. And as soon as I saw his message, it was a mixture of relief, because I knew he was right. And I knew that he was actually helping me make a better decision for me. But there was also this sadness, like that he wasn't going to transform his life and help himself be a happier, healthier person. And it wasn't my job to rescue him. And so I allowed myself most of that day to just transform how I was feeling, to just feel the grief, to feel the sadness, to feel whatever was coming up. And then it was less about doona and ice cream and more about lying in the backyard and crying until I had no tears left. But I certainly do have times when I'm like, okay, Carolyn, you've done enough. You're allowed to go and have a second coffee and just read your book or whatever. But there's a lot less self-pity and self-indulgence than there used to be, because now I know there's no excuses. Like I have 12 million friggin' tools I could use to transform how I'm feeling. So I only sit in that as long as my ego wants to go, boo, I want to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah. I find I give myself a time limit these days. So while it might have been a couple of days that I would have been wallowing in victim mode, I say, you know what, all these tools in my toolbox and I just can't be asked to use any of them right now. So I'm going to give myself the night, have an early night, a bath, bottle of wine, read a book, you know, whatever I feel like doing at the time. Tomorrow's a new day. I'll reset and I'll implement the tools that I've got then. Yeah. So how has the adversity that you've gone through in your life shaped the relationship with yourself and also other people?
So it's interesting because I feel like there's been multiple adversities. I feel like the feeling like I was really, Carly, I think all of them come back to not good enough. All of them. The challenges with feeling socially acceptable at school was because I didn't feel like I was good enough to be one of the cool kids or to be liked by other kids, or I wasn't allowed to be myself because who I wasn't good enough, even in my quirkiness. Feeling like I wasn't strong enough to be able to go, no, like I'm not okay with these drugs in my body. Let's find a different way to do this. And the multiple experiences of having sexual boundaries crossed. Again, that was not good enough stuff, because if I felt good enough about myself, I wouldn't have put myself in highly dangerous situations, because I would have been caring for my body better and I'm not saying necessarily that's true for every woman who gets sexually assaulted, but in my case, without telling hours worth of stories, each of those situations could have been prevented if I actually liked myself better, because I wouldn't have put myself in those situations. If I really consciously cared about Carolyn and thought she was good enough. So I think I'm going to need to ask you to ask that question again.
Sure. Yeah. So I was kind of reflecting, especially I suppose with the sexual assault experiences, on how that then translated to what showed up for you, I suppose, in your relationship with yourself and with other people. I guess before you really started doing the transformative work.
So my relationship with myself has not been very good. And I think, like, for a lot of people who, anyone who is actually watching this video series is going to be in a process of what I would call waking up. Like, you don't go from being in zombie land, having no idea that you have no control over your life, to suddenly watching this video series. It's unlikely that you kind of, if somebody's watching this, they're wanting to make changes and they're wanting to become more aware of themselves and more aware of their relationship. But I think certainly in the first, so I had what as I reflect back on the story, I see 5 incidences of having sexual boundaries violated over a period of about 10 years. And certainly for the first 2 times that happened, I didn't have a concept of the fact that I had a relationship with myself. If somebody had said that to me, I would have thought they were talking gibberish. And then it was soon after the second one where it was about that same time where I had done a course in outdoor leadership. And so I was leading groups of adults and children into environments in the outdoors. So we would go on multiple day hiking trips and abseiling and rock climbing and all that sort of stuff. And what the teachers of our course wisely realized is, if we, as a bunch of mostly 20-something-year-olds, were going to lead other people in the outdoors, we needed to be able to lead ourselves. And so that was kind of the beginning. At the age of about 24, 25, that was the beginning of me starting to do this personal development process journey and start to realize, oh, hey, I'm in control of my life and I can make different decisions, and I can make different decisions about how I react to what happens in my life. And so that's where I started to become way more aware, especially of my relationships with other people, and realizing that, sure, I am a bit quirky, but there are going to be people who like the quirky and there are going to be people who don't. And I don't need to be liked by everyone. So I think there was I know for myself, Carly, that with each of these important, what I would call life lessons of, like, oh, I'm allowed to be myself and I don't need to be liked by everybody. Like, I must have heard that for the first time in primary school, right? But it sinks in at a deeper and deeper and deeper level, to the point where we're able to embody it so much more. And so as I started to do more stuff in the personal development industry, and then coming into my early 30s, started working as a coach and doing public speaking and running workshops, I started to get used to the fact that I would have an audience of people, and I knew some of them would like me and some of them didn't. And my job was not to be liked by everybody. My job was to show up and teach what I was there to teach. And the people who got it and the people who liked my version of showing up, they were my people. And the people who didn't like the way I teach, my job was to just let them go so they could go find somebody else who they resonate with. Yeah. Right? And there's such freedom in that. So I'm still not sure if I totally answered your question, but I think the biggest thing I want to say in relation to that question is that through the adversity, because I chose to take the adversity and learn from it, grow through it, then it has kind of catapulted or sped up my personal development journey. And it has sped up because I chose to use the pain and the suffering and the difficulty and the adversity to help me instead of control me, because I used it to improve my life rather than be a victim of it. It means that I'm a 35-year-old who experiences joy and bliss and love and gratitude every day. And for myself, like, I love Carolyn. I think she's freaking amazing. And to be able to say that with like no trace of arrogance or inauthenticity, like, I'm not saying it because it matches my brand. I'm saying it because if I think about what I've been through to get to this point, I could be in tears for myself for all the work I've done. Right? And to be able to reach that level of love and wisdom at such a young age, I know it's because I took the shit that happened and I freaking used it to make my life better. And so I think anyone who goes through awful experiences, if we're willing to work through them and shift through them, there's such an opportunity to have such an exceptionally beautiful life right now by transforming it. Not by doing what so many people do, which is go, boo, poor me, stuck in the story. Because it's a choice, right? We can choose to stay stuck in the story, or we can choose to friggin' do something about it. And I just chose the latter.
That's awesome. I love that. So talk to me about self-love then, because there would have been a time when you were feeling not good enough that you would not have loved yourself. And so part of the personal development journey is that element of self-love, isn't it? So, and you can now confidently say that you love yourself, which is amazing. And so many people aren't there yet. So talk to me about that process, how that process was for you, how you even figured out that you needed to kind of get involved in loving yourself more to have a transformed life.
So I don't remember necessarily a distinct moment on this. There have been a series of moments over a really long period of time. But I have a sense that somewhere along the way I must have read something, or somebody must have said it, and I don't have it as clear memory, but I have a sense of it. Somebody suggesting, well, hang on, if you love other people, if you love your mum, if you love your dad, if you love your friends, if you I haven't had very healthy relationships with, intimate relationships with men, but I've tried to love the men in my life. And what was suggested is, if you love all these other people, well, what about loving Carolyn? and something in that, I was just like, oh crap, you've got a point. And so as I had done, I do remember a particular point. So I was 28 and I had done a whole lot of work in the outdoors in Australia. And then I went to the US and I did a summer camp. And again, I didn't really fit in. I was like 10 years older than most of the other camp counselors. I was a professional in the outdoors, and a whole lot of them were just college kids wanting to go and have an interesting, fun summer. And so I really didn't fit in. And I left the summer halfway through and went backpacking around the US for 2.5 months, just overland, wherever the wind took me. And as I was leaving, I saw a book on the bookshelf, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'd seen it as a teenager, and I was like, I just judged it as seriously uncool, like, oh my God, I can't read that book. But as a 28-year-old, still not fitting in, still not feeling like I was good enough or seen or appreciated by, you know, my peers at this camp, I was like, right, Carolyn, I think you need to read this friggin' book. So I read this book as I traveled overland through the US, and it helped me to learn how to improve my relationships with other people and to see and love and appreciate other people. And as I got better and better at appreciating and loving other people, then the next natural step was to do all those kind, loving things I was doing with other people, to do them with myself and for myself. So it was somehow easier to love other people, to get better at loving other people before it was, for me, than doable to love me. But the better I got at being really loving with other people, the more it was like showing up in my face, like, well, you're loving all these other people for who they are. It's about time you do it the same for yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it's a fixed destination per se, because unless you are like this tiny handful of enlightened masters around the world, like, I think that there are actually a really tiny number of people who have fully arrived at a place where they just really deeply, with every cell in their body, get it. But I can tell you that so many more of the cells of my body have crossed over to this new way of being. And it takes a lot now to trigger my not good enough stuff. And I can say with such deep sense of truth that I love me. And it's as true as me saying I live in Sydney or there's grey clouds in the sky here. Like it's feels really solid. Yeah. So and then when I find not good enough stuff, when I find myself judging myself, then I just go, whoop, there's another bit. Great. Am I ready to let go of that bit today?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So if there is someone watching this who has had a similar upbringing to you, has had a similar past with sexual assault, or even just feels like they're not good enough, they're full of self-loathing, what kind of advice or practical tips would you share with that person on the kind of ways that they can start exploring self-love?
So I guess
real, like, what is self-love? How do I do that? You know, what kind of practical things can I do for myself that show that to me?
Well, okay. So one thing that comes to mind that I really loved was reading Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages. And so as I started to study love more and how to love other people more, and I started to notice what my love languages are, then I would practice, like as I practiced loving other people, I would realize I could do the same with myself. And actually, if we're saying that we have a relationship with ourselves, that denotes 2 people. And if we're saying that we love ourselves, that denotes 2 people, which means that actually what you're doing is you're realizing that there is a you who watches the body. There is a you that watches the temporary human form. So then sometimes I will do that and I will talk about Carolyn because I'm watching this temporary form. So if we're talking about loving ourselves, then that means that we're thinking about ourselves in 2, and that's okay. And if we do that, well, then we can love Carolyn, we can love Carly the same way we would love anybody else in our life, right? And that may be helpful for somebody to go, oh, hang on, well, I'm loving my brother right now by doing something for him. Okay, great. Does Carolyn have a love language of acts of service? Okay, great. Maybe I can do something for her, right? So I think that somebody, if somebody's watching this and hasn't read or listened to the audiobook of 5 Love Languages, I would recommend doing that and become aware. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I love it. And I refer to it all the
quiz online. If you just Google 5 Love Languages quiz, then you can do your quiz online to show you what love languages you are.
Yeah. And I was aware of the body of work for probably 5 years before I finally read the book. And when I read the book, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just reading it because I guess I should. But I actually got it so much more by reading the book. So a quick thing people can do for sure is do the quiz, but please, like, get your hands on the book or the audiobook and listen to it. But you can definitely start implementing once you know what your strongest love languages are. So I know, for example, one of yours is words of affirmation, which means if I call you babe or love or sweetheart, you immediately feel more loved by me because I'm speaking one of your love languages.
Yeah.
Right? So by becoming aware what mine were, then I could give love to Carolyn in the forms that she loves to be loved. Right? And so then you can just do little things. So for me, one of mine is words of affirmation, which is probably why this relationship feels easy between you and I, because we're naturally speaking one of the same languages, which means that if I want to give myself a pep talk in my head, like if I've like tripped up on something or I failed at something or I haven't accomplished something, that I might go, hey babe, it's okay. Or hey sweetheart, you did okay. And tomorrow you can do better. So then I'll change the way that I speak to myself to be more gentle, to be more loving, but also to use the words of affirmation because that's one of my love languages. Now, if somebody is in a state of self-loathing, they're a really long way like down the other end of the continuum. And it's not realistic for us to go, okay, you're going to go from self-loathing to self-love in a day or even a month, like a short period of time. But if you can go from self-loathing to being less nasty to yourself, like anything that's heading in this direction is great, right? So less nasty is good. A little bit more reasonable is great. Starting to be kind and nice is good. Saying awesome things about yourself the way you would other people, it's like it's a process. So please don't think you have to go from, like, if somebody is watching this regularly has stuff in their head where they're beating themselves up and treating themselves like shit, don't think you need to jump to a place where, Carly or I are now, where we can really genuinely say kind things about yourself, because you'll just feel like a failure because it's too far to jump in one go. But anything less nasty is great. Yeah. And you just keep walking in that direction. So the love languages, and if you notice that you are good at saying kind things or doing kind things for other people, then realize that your body mind is the same as somebody else's, which means you can start doing those kind things to yourself. Just start, if you can be kind to other people, realize you can be kind to yourself and start being kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. And, I'd like to say to people that if, like you say, we're in a relationship with ourselves, and if that part of us that we're in a relationship with was a friend that we were hanging around with all day, would we be happy to hang out with them if they were just bitching and moaning at us the whole time and, just saying horrible and nasty things about ourselves and bringing us down the whole time? We wouldn't want to hang out with someone like that. So why do we continue to do that to ourselves?
Oh, and what I want to say on that is just realize that whatever the voice is, whatever that is, it's like you've learned that as a child, right? So you've learned it probably from parents who were doing the best job that they knew how. And what has happened in the past doesn't need to happen now. So just because you've always been nasty to yourself doesn't mean you're actually a bad person. And it doesn't matter if some parents said some form of that to you 1,000 million times as a child. It doesn't have to be the truth now. Right? So I will often look at other humans around me and go, if that person can have a really loving, healthy, intimate relationship, so can Carolyn, because we're all made of the same freaking bundles of energy, right? So if somebody over here is phenomenally wealthy, then I go, great, that person can do it, so can Carolyn, because I realized that the only difference is the story we're telling ourselves between our own ears. So if you have been like beating yourself up for a really long time, go, great. Okay, well, I did that in the past and now I choose to do something different just because it freaking feels better. Yeah. And you just start telling yourself a different story, because just because it's been true for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, who cares?
And everyone wants to feel better, don't they? So yeah.
Everyone wants to feel good. That's all we're here to do, is to feel good. That's it. Yeah. That's the whole game. Do things that feel good. Okay.
Yeah. But basically, just you can summarize life in that. Just do things that feel good. The end.
And genuine. Yeah, totally. And genuinely, not like escape with drugs or escape with sex or escape with shopping, because that's just escaping from something that doesn't feel good. It's like the genuine, like when I go swing on swings at the playground, or I climb a tree.
Favorite things to do.
You know, or I speak live with somebody who our work is important. It's like, I genuinely enjoy it. Like so it's just about finding the things that bring you joy and doing them.
Yeah.
Period.
Totally. Make sure you do something fun for yourself today, guys. Really, really important. So what kind of traits would you say have you developed as a person through the adversity that you've gone through in your life? Or what kind of ways has it shaped you into the person that you are today?
So the very first word I heard when you were partway through asking that question was resilience. I have also dramatically increased my emotional intelligence. So I want to define emotional intelligence as I don't know how you describe it. I don't know an official definition for it, but to be far more aware of our emotions and more able to sit with whatever the emotion is without then using it to lash out at somebody.
Without trying to avoid it.
Yeah, without avoiding it or without like trying to displace it, like being able to actually just sit with it. Because actually, if I can just sit in my sadness, God, it doesn't stick around for very long. If I can sit in my anger, it doesn't sit around for very long. So being able to, I want to say like one of the things, this I guess more a skill that I've developed is a really strong ability to sit in discomfort. Whether it's physical discomfort or emotional discomfort or any other kind of discomfort, being able to sit in that and realize it doesn't last forever, but there's so much growth in discomfort. Like when people talk about being, like go to the edge of your comfort zone or break your comfort zone, stretch your comfort zone, which I'm doing constantly, all of the growth happens by being like butted up against the edge. And the edge is friggin' uncomfortable, right? It's
spiky sometimes.
Yeah, it's spiky, it hurts, it's scary.
Not very friendly.
Not at all, no. But by hanging out in the discomfort at the edge, that's where the growth is. And the more we can grow, the more joy there is to experience, the more cool shit that happens in life.
Yeah,
I didn't think
totally.
about growing, but so I think that the number one most useful thing I've developed is a willingness to sit in discomfort for chunks of time. And even if it's 10 seconds here or a minute there, but sometimes it's like, I had a period of doing 5 ultra marathons in 5 years. And I can tell you, like physically, that is not a comfortable experience, right? So then I'd be up against the edge and the discomfort would be hours. Hours. I didn't get enough sleep last night and today I'm going to attempt to run and walk 100 kilometers. That's not going to be a very interesting, like very comfortable experience, right? But it's profound, because then you break through to a whole new level of what you think you're capable of, and being able to stay emotionally calm when the body is like, what the fuck are you doing to me, right? And so much beauty, like doing ultra marathons in the bush where it's like gobsmackingly beautiful, and you're sleep deprived and you've been on your feet for 24 hours and there's like this beautiful full moon and you're like, oh, I'm in so much pain, but that's really beautiful.
Things that you wouldn't normally see, right? You know?
Totally. Yeah. And it gives a different appreciation for life. So I think the number one thing I would encourage people to do, I think, through this is we've been so trained to go for comfortable, right? Get the perfect comfy bed, get the comfy couch, make sure our seat is ergonomic. Like all of these are kind of useful to a degree in terms of looking after our body, but we get stuck in doing what's comfortable all the time. And that's a short path to death, right? But if you can find the things that butt you up against your edge that are also in the direction of your joy, like so many people don't enjoy running, but I freaking love it, right? So for me, it makes sense to butt up against the edge in doing really long running races. But I don't care about flying to the moon or becoming a airline pilot, So even though it would be scary right now if somebody said, right, next week, Carolyn, you have to fly a 747, I'd be like shitting myself. But I also don't have any...
So people on the plane with.
But I don't have any desire to learn how to fly. I'm like, somebody else can do that. I'm busy running, right?
Yeah.
So I think if we can do consciously, deliberately, walk towards the things that bring us joy, and as we do that, butt ourselves up against the edge and sit in this discomfort as long as you can, because the discomfort's not going to kill you. Right? Yeah. And that's where all the growth is. And then, gosh, then there's just more space for joy. At the end of the day, it's all about joy. Just do more things that allow more joy in.
Yeah. It's ironic how we, a lot of people take part in behaviors that don't serve them, like reaching for booze or drugs or whatever it might be, to avoid how they're feeling. And yet by sitting in that feeling and sitting in that discomfort, you shift through it so much quicker. And then you don't hold on to it either. You don't hold on to it to have to deal with it later, where you're just going to keep abusing drugs and alcohol or whatever behavior it is that you're taking part in to avoid how you're feeling. So yeah, that's a great tip to just really allow how you're feeling. It's completely normal. Whatever you're feeling, validate how you're feeling as well, because I get a lot of people say to me, well, what I'm going through right now, I'm not starving in Africa. So many people say that. And I just think, stop invalidating what you're feeling and experiencing right now and really sit with it, because you're feeling it for a reason. You are your own person. We feel things on different continuums, don't we?
Yeah, but we're also not taught that in our schooling system, and most our generation will teach it to this next generation far better than any generation previously, particularly in our society, right? But people reach for the drugs or the alcohol or the sex or the retail therapy or whatever because they're great coping mechanisms. Short-term coping mechanisms that sadly have side effects, right? And so we need to, anyone who is wanting to break away from any of those behaviors, like those coping mechanisms have been fine in the past, but now there's an opportunity to have a coping mechanism or a way of dealing with something that is far healthier and doesn't have anything except awesome side effects. But it's just about learning new skills to be able to replace the drinking or the drugs or the sex or the whatever the case may be. So we've just got to learn some new skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be your, I guess, when you are triggered by something, when something comes up for you that's uncomfortable, what would be your go-to tools that you whip out of your toolbox to deal with it these days?
So I have several, and it depends on what the situation is as to what my intuition guides me to. If I'm in a situation where I'm surrounded by a lot of people and I don't feel like that I need to be able to kind of do a process in my head without everyone around me having to be involved or deal with it or even know that I'm struggling, I would probably use Ho'oponopono. So maybe you can put links for people in there to be able to look up some stuff on that. And I love it because I've practiced it enough now that I can just switch it on as a mantra in my head, and I don't have to. I've done it so much that I don't have to. It's almost like press a button. It's very quick. Last year I did use a lot of faster EFT, which I love. And whilst faster EFT, which is a kind of an upgrade or a shift or change to the original EFT, whilst there is a way of being able to do that mentally, like within your own head, I like to use it when I can physically feel the sensation of doing it on my body, partly because I'm quite kinesthetic, so I like being able to feel it. And I like being able to do it where either, because I don't really care much what other people think, I will happily do it at a train station where there's shitloads of people everywhere, because they're all strangers. I'm never going to see them again. And I couldn't care less if they look at me like, what the hell is that woman doing?
If you see anyone at a train station and they're just going like this, then you know it's Carolyn.
Yeah, it might be me. So, I've definitely been known to do that. But if if I can break away from like even go to the bathroom, or I was actually triggered on a canyoning trip the other day. And I was really surprised. I was like, wow, I was really up against my edge. And what I found in that case was by just walking away from the person who had triggered me and giving myself some space, then I was actually able to calm down enough to realize what had triggered me. And then even in having the awareness of what it was, and probably it helped that I was in the bush where it was so beautiful, that then I could let it go. But a lot of faster EFT and the original EFT is about letting something go. And particularly the wording for faster EFT, which means that I have trained my brain to notice that I'm like getting like angsty about something or sad or feeling ashamed, and to notice it and drop it. Yeah. Notice it, let it go. Yeah. And I can do these processes so quickly, Carly, and I want to highlight this for anyone who's watching, because I've done a shitload of them. Like, I've done it so much. I am what's called unconsciously competent. So it's automatic. Like, I get in a car and I can just drive it. I've done so much of these, but I had to do the work. Just like when you learn how to drive a car, at first it's friggin' hard, yeah. But you want the freedom of being able to drive a car. I knew I wanted the freedom of being able to drop like heavy, negative, unhappy kind of emotions quite quickly. So I did the work to become highly proficient at it, and that's why I can do it so quickly. So I go to those two a lot. And sometimes I will also just go to like mindfulness of breathing, of feeling my body, of looking around and noticing detail. So right now, if I was stressed, I might look out and I see that the wind is moving through the palm trees that I can see just out the window. And then I might see the like 8 different shades of grey that are in the clouds out here, and notice the way that the red curtain hangs. And so I'm like looking for detail and looking to get really connected to right here, right now. Because if I've been triggered by something, and if for any human, anyone who's watching, as you know, Carly, we've been triggered. The term itself means we've been like hooked by something in the past, which means we're not being present here right now.
We're just way too much in our heads at that point, aren't we?
Yeah, we're emotionally like bringing up old baggage. So when old stuff comes up, now I go, woohoo, I found an old piece of baggage I can chuck out. Yeah. But I have to like become present enough again to go, I'm angry at this guy. Right, okay. So what is it about this situation that's making me angry? And what is that story in the past? So then I can just also take it and let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then come back to now. Because right now there's nothing but now. Yeah, that's awesome.
Powerful stuff. I love EFT and Ho'oponopono as well. So for those who don't know, if you go onto onto YouTube and search for EFT, there'll be like hundreds, probably thousands of videos that come up there. Give some of them a go. They're amazing. And Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian mantra for reparation, healing, and forgiveness. And you just repeat the statement, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And it's a really powerful, clearing statement that just neutralizes any negative emotions that you have. Yeah, definitely one of my favorites as well. Yeah. So in what ways do you help people now in your amazing work that you do based on your experiences that you've had?
So I tell a lot of stories. So in terms of how people connect with and learn from me, people jump on my email list and read about my stories, and I share very vulnerably. So, like I did in this interview, I will share real life experiences. And then, so, if it was relevant today, I would talk about what happened just last weekend where I actually lashed out at this guy. And I shared it with one of my clients the other day, because I'm like, you have me on a pedestal and you think that I'm perfect, but let me tell you about where I totally messed up the other day. And more importantly, why? Yeah. Like, why did it happen? And then what did I do about it? Right. So I will share really vulnerably about my experience in being human and what I'm doing as I navigate through life. So I really enjoy writing. And so I'll pour those stories into written word, and then I'll share it with my email list on my blog, and then in a paid capacity I work with clients one-on-one, and soon I will open a group coaching program for women. So I work exclusively with women. Men can jump on my list and read my stuff, but when it comes to coaching, I work with women mostly in business who want to be able to grow their business. And basically I help wake people up so that we're transforming. It doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you feel like you had a happy childhood or an awful childhood. It doesn't matter if somebody is, in a space of self-loathing, or they actually think that they totally love themselves. It doesn't matter, but it's about being able to bring greater awareness to who you actually are and what are the bits that are conditioning that somebody wants to let go of, and like what's the direction that they're heading in life. So I work with clients one-on-one in a 3-month block, and then that way they have a process to be able to become upskilled in tools that can help them to be able to transform. And I have like a whole toolbox of tools. So the tools that I suggest for clients depends very much on who they are, where they are in their journey, whether they're more like pragmatic and where's the science, or they're like off with the cloud, woo-woo spiritual hippies, and anywhere in between. Depends on which tools I want to suggest. I help women get to a point where they really love themselves a whole lot more and can be themselves, and then create their business and create their life and create their relationships through greater self-love and self-awareness.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Awesome. So how can our clients connect? How can our audience connect with you as clients if they choose to?
So best bet is to jump on carolinesouthwell.com. And there is a spot up the top there where you can opt into the newsletter, and I send out a story of some description every week. And then there is also a coaching page there. So just carolinesouthwell.com/coaching, and there's detail about how people can work with me there.
Awesome. And I'll put the links to your website in our show notes page as well.
Thanks, Han.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today for our interview. It's been great having a chat with you today, learning more about you and how your adversity has shaped your life as well. So I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you as an audience got a lot out of today's interview and got some gold nuggets from that. So feel free to follow Caroline. She's awesome. Love her work. Very, very raw and authentic, and just, brilliant. And like you say, Caroline, a lot of people would put people who are coaching other people on a pedestal, and we're just people too. We go through shit too. We have bad days. We wallow in it sometimes, we have ugly cries. So it's important, I think, to follow people who are really raw and authentic with that, so that you don't kind of get bogged down with this idealized version of who you think you should be. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today, and audience, I will see you for episode 8. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for joining me today for my video interview series From Surviving to Thriving, stories of real people overcoming real adversity. If you're currently going through a situation that you're struggling to cope with right now, some kind of change or trauma in your life, maybe that's happened in your past and you're struggling to deal with, then I'm here for you, either via one-on-one coaching or through my online coaching program From Surviving to Thriving, which I put together based on my own experiences of overcoming adversity and with the clients that I had worked with, helping them through their tough times. This is a combination of tools, quick and easy tools that will help you to transform your life, help you shift out of that negative mindset and into neutralizing those negative emotions so that you can cope with what's going on and create a better life for yourself. Head on over to my website, coachcarly.com, where you'll find all the information you'll need. And if you want to get in touch, feel free to do so via the contact page on my website. I look forward to hearing from you soon.